What's up, party people? It's Jason Clown Brown from the band Cycotic Youth. You're watching John the Ninja. And don't forget to download on all platforms July 15th, Cyco Up from the band Cycotic Youth. Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the dojo, aka the John the Ninja Studios. And you know this, man. And again, another legend, another man that I can say has lived that life. I got to take this hat off. I'm wearing it for nostalgia's sake. Why? Because we're both skaters. But let's go into it. The man I have today has lived a life. He is most definitely a legend in California, having not only skated and becoming a third generation Z-Boy. If you don't know who the Z-Boys are, that's the group of guys that took skateboarding from just riding a 10 little piece of plywood on the ground pretending to surf into the phenomenon that it is now. He's also a tattoo owner, shop owner. He's tattooed all over the world. He's tattooed some of the greatest. But of course, most importantly, other than the fact that he's been around legends, he's a musician. And this musician right here I have with us is Jason Brown. Let me give you a little rep of what his history and career has been like. At 15, he got into the punk scene, not only listening to Suicidal Tendencies, but his first show, which I'm jealous of, was Black Flag and the Misfits. This allowed him to find his calling. And with his brother, they formed Cycotic Youth, a great, not gritty, but a perfect representation of the Santa Monica skate punk scene at the time. And this allowed him not only to tour with bands like Pantera, Death Angel, King Diamond, but after the band slowed down a bit, he was able to go all over the world and tour with other acts like Evil and etc. Even touring with Snoop Dogg. Guys, Snoop Dogg is no joke. He is a fun time. But the point I'm trying to make here is he established connections and met the right people and was able to form a life, all because he fell in love with music at the age of 15. And with that said, after almost a 30-year hiatus, the band Cycotic Youth left such an impact they were asked to do a reunion show for the Creepers, Los Creepers show. And with that, the phone calls started coming in. More people wanted to see them again. More people wanted that sound. And Jason had to go in again. So what he did, he recruited a new crew for Cycotic Youth. He got Rob, Mikey, Bill, and I gotta say, Bill is a wonderful, wonderful drummer, and even Nick Garcia, and he has formed Cycotic Youth. They'll be dropping their new album July 15th, but guys, most importantly, let me tell you, if you're gonna get any advice from this man, it's don't be a follower, fall down, get up, and most importantly, be custom. Ladies and gentlemen, I got with us Mr. Jason Brown. Sir, how you doing?
Party people. Life is good, man. I can't complain, man. Just hanging out here on the west side, Santa Monica and Venice area, man. I'm honored to do this interview. As you say, we grew up skating and surfing and a little bit of motocross, but getting Cycotic Youth back together means a lot to me because it went through so many changes after the reunion show. And, when we locked in the people that we locked in, we just kind of took off from there. And we were, me and my brother did start this band in 83. It got defunct in 88 due to my brother going away to college. But, during pre-production for this album, which we did the album with producer Nick Jett, who is also the famed drummer from the hardcore band Terror. And he produced the album, but he also played drums on this album. So that's just something that y'all get looked forward to. And it kind of just made it skyrocket into our sound again. And not to say that our old stuff, we didn't like playing it and we still do play it, but we kind of just evolved, as older adults, I would say, and a little bit more technical.
And you know what? I have to say, the people you pulled for this effort is great. If I'm correct, I want to make sure I'm saying his name right. It's Greg Hentson of Bad Religion, correct?
Yeah, we actually approached him to do our first demo. Circle Jerks, Bad Religion. He's a friend of ours, but it didn't really cohesively go with what we were thinking as far as sound. So our next step was we were going to go up to Berkeley, California and record with Alejandro from a band called Exhumed. That didn't work out. We were looking for a producer. I have a good friend, Roy Lozano, who plays guitar for the famous Downset band called Downset from LA. He said, dude, check out Nick Jett, and I'm like, doesn't he play drums for Terror? He said, yeah, but he's an excellent producer, engineer. And dude, we went in there and we just cut one of our best albums yet.
Now, did Howie Weinberg mix this for you guys? Because I'm gonna tell you, he's like the Rick Rubin of music. He works with everybody and he just gets it. He just hears what has to be there, and it doesn't matter if it's hip hop or even if it's hard rock or soft rock. Well, how did it come to that where you got him, one of these famed mixers, a guy who's worked with everybody, especially coming to fame with Nirvana? How'd you get him on board?
He actually did the new Downset record. He had mastered the new Downset record, and again, Roy Lozano from Downset said, "Hey man, talk to Nick and have him call Howie, see if Howie has time to master your record." And I said, "Fuck, dude, Howie's done everybody from Nirvana to Led Zeppelin to God, who knows, System of a Down." So I'm like, dude's not gonna have time for this punk band from Los Angeles, from West LA and Santa Monica to do it. He goes, if Howie likes it, he'll do it. And the reason why Howie did it is because he likes the music and he likes the fact that Nick Jett produced it. He didn't have to do much. You know what I mean? He likes records that are done, and all he's got to do is turn a couple knobs and put his name on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So walk me back to the reunion, because you never left music. Like I said earlier, you've had your hand in a bunch of other projects. You've done a lot. And the fact that you were able, even when the band disbanded, you were able to tour with other bands, not just Suicidal Tendencies, but with your own bands and continue to perform. Was there a little hesitation when you were asked to do the reunion show? Did you and your brother have to go like, you know what, should we really do this? Or was it kind of like, you know what, I'm still in shape. Let's hop on this. Let's do this.
Yeah, my brother had kind of dabbled with drums, over the years after quitting Cycotic Youth. And he played with a couple punk bands here and there, but really wasn't continuing as I did, as I came out of the 80s into the 90s. I recorded with Evil, and we had a deal on the table from Hollywood Records. It didn't work out. I kind of went through, you talk about Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg was, we toured with Snoop Dogg, was in a band called Strapped. We had a record deal with Hawaiian Records out of Seattle. It was more of a punk rock, hip hop, a thrash kind of band. And our bass player was Snoop Dogg's tour manager. So that's how we got to open up in Europe with Snoop. It was pretty amazing, dude, because we're his backyard band. And we're playing the Zenith Arena in Cologne, Germany, just going, what the fuck is this, And, I just kind of kept it going. At that time that my brother said, hey, let's do this reunion, I was recording a reunion with Evil. We did a single and a video, and I was in the studio with Evil. It kind of it was a little bit of a, conflict of interest with me and my brother, because we're like that, but it all worked out. We got the original dudes in the band except for one, and he was unable to play or even come around, and the guys that were in the band that original, they hadn't played in 20 years. So it was really, we were hanging on the edge of our teeth for this reunion show. But so many people showed up from the old school. Everyone got so smashed that no one even cared, dude. They were just like, yeah. So, the kids started, oh, who's this punk band from Cycotic Youth? They started, YouTube videos started popping up of the show, and it just kind of got momentum from there. And we were asked to do a couple more shows. We got a couple more, I'd say, better players in the band at the time. And we just kind of started moving forward with it. And then we got to a point to where we're like, dude, we need to do some new shit. Because the only thing that out there was there's an album out there and a CD, which is all remastered demos and backyard party stuff. And it's out of a label from Seattle again called punkrecords.net. The guy's a friend of ours. And he said, hey, I want to redo all your stuff. And this guy has actually been doing all the old school bands from Santa Monica and Venice. He's been putting them out on vinyl. The dude loves vinyl, you know, but he likes all OG stuff. And I said, well, if you want to put this record, why don't you put out a new record of our new shit? And he's like, I don't like the new shit. It's too technical for me. He's old school punk rocker. So, you know, we decided to finally, you know, come in with Mikey Beato. He's a New York hardcore dude, and he plays bass for us now. And then we got Nick Garcia playing second guitar. And you know, during that pre-production, my brother had to leave for some personal reasons, and we got Bill Stillwell Greenwood to play drums on it. And he hasn't recorded any stuff with me because obviously Nick Jett came and played on the album because we needed a drummer. My brother kind of quit during pre-production, so Nick Jett plays on the album. But all the new stuff, man, is just heading in the right direction, and you guys are going to be excited to hear from me.
What's the album's name? Has that been established?
Yeah, the album's called Cyco Up, which is one of our singles. And, you know, basically it's just like when your back's against the wall, you got to stand up, man. And you got to stand up for yourself. And, you know, that's what we kind of, it's our thing of like, you know, hey, let's, you know, cycle up, like stand up and, you know, back yourself up, back your friends up, and don't let anybody down in the meantime.
When I had my chat with Mike Muir, I asked him about like initially the meaning of suicidal tendencies and what it was. And it was along those lines of like, hey, it's not really, you know, take yourself out. It's more so, you know, don't be afraid of the current situation. I'm finding that there are different words like Cyco Up and suicidal that embodied more of a be positive, get through this. Were there any other words you remember or any slang that would have the same staying power from back in the day that you can remember? Any other words you guys used to say all the time that was kind of just encouraging? Hey, keep it going, man. Let's go.
You know, when we would skate, we said, come on, man, let's get shagged, skate hard and get suicidal. That was the, you know, thing to say. Or, you know, let's get them up, meaning, you know, if we got to back into a corner. And mostly, you know, Cyco Up is, you know, somebody, if you listen to the lyrics, it could be more of like a fighting song, but it's more of a, you know, hey, I'm taking enough shit from you. And here I am, I'm in your face. Now, what are you going to do? What decision are you going to make now? You know what I'm saying? It's not so much, it might seem like a violent song, but it's more, you know, my bass player, he does Muay Thai, bro. He does all that shit, man. He's a teacher. He's been doing it forever. And he wrote that song. He wrote the lyrics. So it's more of a, you know, let's just do it. You know what I mean? Let's be a part of it. Let's get back up when we fall back down, and let's get psycho.
And let me just put it out there to everybody. Mikey is a beast on bass. It's not funny. I believe the song was Suicide, or it might have that in the lyrics, but I saw a video on YouTube where he just said, I'm gonna take control, did his bass solo, and the band went into it. I loved it. Yeah. With being in the Santa Monica area, with that skater scene, with that particular sound, a lot of people could misunderstand that it's its own entity. It's not Suicidal Tendencies. It's not the other bands that you guys grew up with and played with. How would you explain to a fan listening to you guys for the first time how you have your stamp of approval on it, how it's your own and nobody else's, yet still gives homage to the culture that you guys grew up in? Right.
Well, you know, if you listen to bands from the West Side, Santa Monica, and Venice, there's only one sound that comes from, and that comes from, I mean, you can say, oh, it's that suicidal sound, but it's, you know, it's more than that. There was lots of bands during those times. Suicidal just was one of the bands that got signed during the 80s and stuff. But, you know, it's just that sound that comes from the West Side. And, you know, it's the way that we grew up, you know. They're like, wow, man, look at these dudes. They look like fucking Chicanos, you know. But we grew up in those neighborhoods of custom cars, skateboarding, and low riding. You know what I mean? And it was more of you know, punk rock music meets low riding. You know what I'm saying? Like to this day, I'm in a car club. I got a couple custom cars, and it just all goes together. And you know, back in those days, you were either a American punk or an English punk, or you were a suicidal punk. And a suicidal punk was all this guy's wearing a flannel. He's got a mohawk. He's got a bandana. He's got braces on. He's got boots. He looks just a little bit different. He acts just a little bit different. This guy must be a suicidal punk. So, you know, that whole thing got everybody from the West Side bands got us tagged as a suicidal band. And it wasn't just because Suicidal was the biggest band at that time. It was because our sound was so unique, because we grew up in an area where that's all you heard. That's all you heard at a backyard party. Beowulf, No Mercy, No Reaction, Against, False, Broken Will, Cycotic Youth, you know, all these bands that you heard, you're like, wow, as a kid, these dudes were always a little older than me. Like Jay, my boy Jay over there, he was a little bit older than me, and I would follow him around and wanted to be, you know, skate with Tony Alva and Jim Muir and Wes Humpson. Wes Humpson created all the Dogtown decks, and his mom was my teacher. So I would get all the Dogtown decks before they would come out, all the Shogo Kubos, all the Bob Biniacs, all these decks would come out, the Red Dogs. And we would skate and follow these dudes so till they were finally like, all right, just come on. You guys want to hang out. You guys are going to do the dirt. You're the one that's going to throw that paint bucket over the fence into the pool, so the neighbors will drain the pool the next day and we can come and skate it. You know what I mean? You're the kids that are going to be up on top of that roof looking for those pools that we want to basically drain, or we want to skate, you know, if it's a good kidney pool or, you know, a good shamrock pool. And, you know, it just became more of following these dudes around, and then we followed their music. So, you know, those guys are in their 60s. I'm in my 50s. It was just something that we created from that sound to make us, okay, they've got to be from that neighborhood. So you can hear it today in our music. You can hear it into Northeast LA punk rock to West Side punk rock. You can hear the difference in it. But in reality, it's all the same message.
Which is pretty awesome with Excel and Neighborhood and all those other bands you mentioned. Let's roll it back, because I know the two things that always keep on popping up is you played football and you were a skater. And that's aside from your ability to draw. But again, you mentioned these guys, just legends. You go anywhere in the world, they really took the form of skateboarding and made it a powerhouse that was never seen before. And then, of course, we had Tony Hawk, and he exposed it to the world. So I'm curious, when you started skating, what was your best moves? Because I skated in high school and college, and of course it's like, well, man, what can you do? Well, it was always back and forth, you know, you're trying to outdo the next person. So explain to me the joy you got from skating, how long you lasted, and of course I got to know your best trick. What was your best trick, you know?
Dude, back in the days, bro, it was, you know, who can get over the light, you know what I'm saying? And then it was like, you know, this is pool. I'm a pool skater, bro. Ramps, you know, we'd go to, you know, job sites at night and cut the locks and steal wood. I don't recommend you stealing out there, little kiddos, but we had just put ramps right in the middle of the damn street, bro, and put them up against the Venice Pavilion. We would get wood. And so, you know, back in the days, it was like, dude, who can get over the light, you know, who can hit tiles? And then it was like, who can grind, who can do a wheelie. You know, my favorite trick was doing the layback grinds, bro. You know, body, head down towards the end, feet up by the coping, and just, you know, and it all transforms from surfing, bro. You know, we would wake up in the morning before school, surf at dawn patrol. And then if we weren't going to school, we'd skate all day, and then we'd come back and hit the glass off, which would be the sunset when it was high tide. So we, you know, it was all about, you know, doing Bertelmans. Like Bertelman was you know, Jerry Lopez, those dudes were surfing. Their style, we wanted to emulate that style of surfing, you know what I mean, on concrete. And we'd go to schools like Kenner or Paul Revere where they had these massive banks, and we'd hop the fence, and people would just start doing their own tricks. And you know, one day, fucking Jay and Tony came out of the pool. You know what I'm saying? You're like, what the fuck was that all about? I mean, I wasn't there. I was a little bit younger, but, you know, those are the stories I hear from dudes that are older than me. I'm 53, so those dudes like in their 60s, and I wasn't there at the dog bowl that day that happened, but that kind of changed skateboarding, you know, that they could actually come out of the pool and go back in, you know?
It's those little advances that just make huge splashes. Can you walk me through your upbringing? Because it sounds like everybody in that area always had a good family. And if they didn't have a good family, they always had the support of friends and their family. So what was your family upbringing like with your brother and everyone else in the household? Did you ever feel like you were disgruntled? Did you ever just feel like you were finding your way? Was it pretty normal, or was it a little bit of a struggle?
You know, brother, nothing's normal where I grew up at. You know, my dad was a workaholic and an alcoholic. My mom was an heroin addict growing up. You know, she is since not a heroin addict, been sober for a long time. We have a great relationship. My dad has since passed away a couple years back, but growing up, my dad was a surfer. You know, he went to Santa Monica High School, graduated Santa Monica High School. We lived 7 blocks from the beach, and he taught me and my brother how to surf. And I don't know if anybody out there has seen the Dogtown movie, the Lords of Dogtown, the Sea Boys. There's the POP Pier, which was the ruins that finally ended up getting burnt down in the 60s and 70s. But where I learned to surf was at that pier. That pier wasn't there because it had already got demolished. But at low tide, you would be able to see the piling sticking up. And that's where I learned to surf. And my dad would teach us. We'd go down to San Onofre, which is like, you know, down south, you know, Mexico, friggin' up north, Northern California. So my dad was a big influence in teaching me and my brother how to surf. And the neighborhood taught us how to skate because it was just one thing. You know, my dad was always at work, and you know, it was pretty much a free for all. I didn't have a very, you know, a very tough childhood, but you know, with my dad always being at work and me and my brother doing for ourselves, you know, we got raised by the neighborhood, you know. And there was one point in time, had I not found punk rock music in 80, 83, I would have been gangbanging, you know what I mean? And it took that turn, you know, say, you know, I don't want to go down this road, even though I did get caught up in punk rock gangs, you know, back in the days. And I did do some stuff that I'm not proud of, but music always kept me away from that, you know, and that's why I wanted to continue. When my brother went away to college, he went to Motorcycle Mechanics Institute, and, you know, I was drawing all the backyard party flyers, all the skateboards. You know, one of my mentors is Ric Clayton, who taught me how to tattoo, and he's responsible for all the hand-drawn shirts on the first Suicidal album. So when I met him, it was just like, dude, you know, I tried to take after him and do my own hand-drawn shirts. And, you know, it just kind of excelled from there. And I always kept art close and music to keep me out of trouble. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, the day in the life was surfing in the morning, skating during the day, and surfing at night, and then going to school whenever we could, you know what I mean? And, you know, I knew that I wanted to tattoo. I just never really got into tattooing until I started getting into my 20s. And my brother actually called up Ric Clayton. It's like, hey, my brother really wants to learn how to tattoo. So why don't you have him come up to the shop and hang out? And it was LA Tattoo in Hollywood. And I went and I hung out, dude. And I just never left. And then, you know, a few years later, finished my apprenticeship. And, you know, from there, dude, it was back in the 90s, and I'm kind of skipping over, but if you want to know about the tattoo shop, I kind of was working in Hollywood at LA Tattoo, and during the 90s, it was late 90s, I think. Yeah, late 90s, Robert Trujillo was playing for Suicidal. He left to go play with Ozzy. And Robert's a great friend, and you know, Mike was like, "I'm gonna take a break, a little hiatus from touring and stuff like that." I'm like, "That's cool." So like a couple years went by, and then Mike's like, "Hey, you know, I'm getting the band back together with some new players, and Brooks Wackerman, Josh Paul, Mike Clark, you know, Muir." And they started doing little van tours. Hey, you want to come on tour and tattoo on tour? I was like, well, fuck yeah. So we did like a United States van tour, and then it kind of just started moving, picking up steam again. Suicidal was back. They were getting offers, and then we did Warp Tour, and I went with them on Warp Tour, and then I went to Europe with them, and I was tattooing on the road in Germany and Paris and Portugal and Madrid. It was just like living the life, bro. You know, I was doing a little bass teching at the same time, changing strings, tuning and stuff like that. So it was all of a vacation for me. I had never been to those cities. And then when we got back, I was telling Mike, hey man, the dude that I'm working for, he's not really happy that I'm leaving all the time. You know, I might lose my job over there. And he's like, well, why don't we just open up the shop, you know? And I'm like, yeah, dude, but I want it to be a tattoo shop. I don't want it to be a memorabilia place. You know, I want it to be a righteous tattoo shop. And he's like, look, man, you know, you got all the stuff. I got the money. Let's put it up. Let's do it. And let's bring it back to the old days. Because in the old days, they had a skate shop called Streets of Venice. And the band lived upstairs. And there was a skate shop below. And there was a rehearsal studio in the back that all the local bands would rehearse there. And he's like, well, let's make it like Streets of Venice, this Carrie. So we basically opened in 98. We did an in-store for Suicidal. We filmed the Friends and Family video for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. And we opened in 98, dude. And you can come in and see some memorabilia on the band. We carry Dogtown skates. We got punk rock flyers from way back, couple Grammy nominations, some gold records. And it's just somewhere where if you wanted to be psycho for a day and you're from the East Coast, you can come in.
Don't tempt me now. I might have to roll through again.
Hey, dude, you got to come through about a mile from the beach. And this is more of a tattoo shop, you know, with some suicidal stuff in it. And it's becoming, you know, we got award-winning artists in there that do immaculate work. We're coming up on 25 years. And yeah, dude, I've been traveling all over the world because of it. I've got a chance to go to Japan a couple times. I'm actually going back September 12th to tattoo out there for 2 weeks. So I'm going to lock in hopefully a Cycotic Youth Japan tour for next year. So yeah, dude, we might try to do an album cassette deal over in Japan. So yeah, they want the cassettes, man.
Yeah, they still love it, and I do too. Can we go back to Ric Clayton? Because aside from the music aspect, I feel that he was very, very pivotal. You've already mentioned how he's guided you, how he's helped you, you know, and that a lot of people don't know. You have done a lot of designs and t-shirts, not just for bands, but all these other graphics for decks and etc. What would you pinpoint is one of the most pivotal or most important lessons he taught you, whether it was just drawing or whether it was the actual tattooing process? When I think of my mentor, he taught me keeping your mind through repetition. I would have to go in over and over and over again into the studio, and I'm looking like a madman because I keep on doing the same take, and he's like, it's not right. And I'm like, what do you mean, man? It's the same thing. And then years later, I hear it, and I'm like, damn, he was right. And he taught me that discipline to get it right, and you'll know when you do. So what was something he taught you that was very pivotal into your art?
You know, he was dude was kind of crazy, man. And he, you know, we're always joking around. But when it came to it's serious, man, he's like, look at, man, always know where you want to go from point A to point B. Know where you're going to start and know when you're going to know where you're going to end up. Because if you don't have that plan, excuse me, even in life, if you don't have that plan, I mean, a lot of people are just going with the whim, and where I end up, at least you want to have some type of plan. He's like, and that's the thing with tattooing. No, you know, get used to the design, draw it a few times, you know what you're going to do. If you don't know what you're going to do, make sure you have a reference there so you can kind of see where you're going, you know. And you know, I started drawing skulls because of Ric Clayton, you know, seeing all his hand-drawn shirts, all his hand-drawn leather jackets back in the days. And, you know, the first thing I ever drew was a skull when I was probably, I don't know, in 6th grade. And it's still continued till this day. And you know, my form of a skull is a little bit different than others, I guess. And people know, okay, that's Jason Brown's skull. And Ric really kind of bring up, we call it the flip skull, which is the hat, the bandana with the flipped up hat. Obviously, I'm wearing right now, but you know, and it's more of a, I don't know if I have any artwork in here, but it's more of a, he kind of created the flip skull, and then I kind of ran with it and did my own thing. So I've done a lot of that artwork over the years. You know, obviously I've done a bunch of series for Z-Flex and Dogtown, and I'm actually going to be in an art show coming this weekend, which is called this SoCal Style Masters, and it's put on by Bobby Ruiz, who owns Tribal Wear, and it's in San Diego at the California Center for the Arts in Escondido, and it's a big show with guys like Chente Rios, Tim Hendricks, Jack Rudy, oh man, just the Shepherd Ferry, Mike Giant. And it's a lowrider art show with lowrider cars and culture of Southern California. So it's probably one of the biggest art show of my career. And you know, I got that way because I did listen to Ric, and I did listen to a guy named Baby Ray, who is also one of my mentors. And it's just, you know, knowing where the best thing I can learn is knowing where you're going to go, where you're going to be at. Definitely.
And considering you've been in the presence of like Michael McCain, Michael Castillo, Lyle Turtle, who's done Janis Joplin, Paul Stanley, like all these great, just the artistry of tattooing. It is always a beautiful thing. Is there anybody that you were a little apprehensive to tattoo because you held them in such high esteem, or they were such a good friend? Like, say Mike say, hey man, can you tat me? And you're like, oh, I don't know, man. Maybe it just wasn't the right time, or you're just like, oh, I'm not worthy. Because you, again, the plethora of people that you know, it far extends the music and the artistry.
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you a funny story, and fucking Mike's probably gonna be pissed I tell him, but back in the days when we did open the shop, Mike Muir, you know, I call him, his name was we call him Bulldog. So Bulldog, Psycho Michael, he wanted to get Suicidal tattooed on his stomach, you know, and I'm like, let's do it, you know, let's do it. I'd be happy to do it. And his parents are very, very strict. His older brother James, who owns Dogtown Skates, he has tattoos, but you know, I go, when are we gonna do this tattoo? And Mike's like, oh, my mom said I couldn't do it. You know, and I'm like, wait a minute, dude, you're like in your 40s or 50s. Your mom said you can't do it. They're very religious and very, you know, very particular. I said, well, your brother has tattoos, and she said, mom doesn't want me to do it, dog. I can't do it. I'm like, all right, I respect that. And it was just funny because Mike's dad, Gene, he's the one that pretty much ran all the merchandise for many, many years out of their garage. Like if you were buying stuff from Triple M Productions, that was Mike's dad, you know, till, you know, I mean, he's in his 90s now, dude, and he's done it up till his 80s. And he was our driver's ed teacher in school. And we were always stoked that Mr. Muir was, you know, our teacher, dude. And we knew that his son was in Suicidal. So we were always stoked with that. But yeah, dude, there's been some, you know, I guess I would never like turn down a tattoo unless, you know, I didn't feel that it was representing what I wanted to represent. Like I don't do any racist stuff. I don't do any, you know, stuff that, you know, if you bring me a design, I'm going to try to, if somebody else has it, I'm going to change it to my ability because everybody else is walking around with that on. But you know, when you have I guess when you have people like Julianne Moore or Whoopi Goldberg or I tattooed Robert Downey Jr. That was pretty intense, bro. Robert Downey Jr. God, who else? Chyna, the pro wrestler. Those ones are kind of like, damn, this person's huge. You know what I'm saying? And I tattooed Robert Downey Jr. right before he got the whole Iron Man gig. You know what I mean? And he actually came into my studio, bro, under a court order. He had an ankle bracelet on because he had been getting in trouble. So he came in with someone from the rehab, and they brought him in, and I have a picture of me and him, me tattooing him, and he has a court ordered ankle bracelet on. It's pretty funny, dude. And you know, people like, dude, that was huge. That's Iron Man. I go, yeah, I kind of did it before Iron Man. So he became huge after that. He got his life together, you know. And he was down the street from the tattoo shop, you know, approaching prostitutes trying to get him crack cocaine, bro. And I'm like, dude, you're a freaking millionaire. Why you just have someone come to your house and deliver it, you know? And he ended up getting busted, and he ended up in my shop, which was cool. And, you know, those are the tattoos that you remember, bro. Crazy tattoos. Like, you know, I did, this lady came in, she was just like a business lady, and she wanted me to do a 5-point star around her anus. And I'm like, are you fucking out of your mind? Like, just weird stuff, bro, like that. You know what I mean? And I'm like, wow, like, you really wanted to do this, you know? And I did it, bro, and it was an experience. So it's stuff like that that's like, people like, what is the craziest thing you do? Or what's the most nerve-wracking tattoos to do? And I think personally are the memorial tattoos, like when people have passed away, pictures of their family members, or designs that have to do with members that have passed away. Those are the most, you know, the most biggest headaches out of them all, because, you know, those person moves, there's no fixing anything, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I remember you did the Angela Green one. She was the huge movie star back in the day, and that was a really, really pretty portrait.
Yeah.
Speaking of just the nostalgia, the story you always bring up in interviews, and I love it so much, but I just can't pinpoint what happened. You guys weren't getting any gigs because it was the Sunset Strip. They're playing only what they used to call back in the day teeth metal, because everybody was smiling, but now it's hair metal.
Yeah.
You guys said, screw it, let's make the demo, let's trick them, and then you bring all your boys because it was pay to play. You guys start playing the music, security gets pissed, cops show up, riot breaks out. Understandably, you guys get arrested, a bunch of people get arrested. How did your mom get arrested? That's the one part of the story. I'm like, what the hell happened that she got mixed up and you got your own mom arrested? And you're like 15 at the time. So I'm like,
You know what? My mom's a 4'11" Sicilian woman, dude. And, you know, if you know Sicilians, they got mouths on them. Till this day, she still got a mouth on her, but I love her to death. But she, you know, they had me handcuffed, and she just tried to get in the way. Like, that's my son. What are you doing? Like, you know, grabbing the arms of the sheriffs to pull them away from handcuffing me, you know? And they're like, lady, if you do not back up, you're going to jail too. And, you know, she's like, that just got involved, dude. And she got the handcuffs put on her for sure and got put back in the car. They didn't ever take us to jail, but they, you know, until they can get everything sorted out, they thought that I was the leader, and that, you know, and my mom was the, you know, the master behind everything. And it was just funny, man. I was like, these dudes have no idea who we are and what we did. And, you know, we tried to play the Sunset Strip for, you know, for years, bro. And back then there was places like Raji's or the Stardust or Perkins Palace. Like, those clubs were off the beaten path, dude, but they always had punk rock shows. Santa Monica Civic, the Cafe de Grand. None of them were on the strip. They were always off the strip. I mean, you could go to the Cafe de Grand during the week and for $5 see the Decry, Neighborhood Watch, Fear, and Circle Jerks, dude, for $5. It was just the way it was, dude. You know, it was crazy back in those days. Punk rock was alive, but they keep it kind of on the outskirts and hidden in Hollywood. And, you know, we had they had their crews, man. You had their Hollywood lads. You had the from the San Fernando Valley Fight for Freedom crew. You had from Burbank, you had a Burbank punk organization, and you had La Mirada punks from Northeast LA, and then you had your suicidal punks. So, dude, it was clashing. It was clashing of the crews for sure. And those punk rock shows weren't nothing nice, dude, when they would clash. And you would just hope that the next show would be in your neighborhood, because you would definitely be the ones that were outnumbering the rest.
What were some of the traditions back then for American punk? Because I know the UK punks, it was a lot of spitting. That was one of the traditions. Like if they liked you, they would spit on you. And a lot of people didn't know that. So they'd come overseas, start playing and get spit on, or etc. Other than the, I would say, charged environment, because the fighting was almost a definite. Something's going to go down, whether or not it's the crews or somebody just doesn't like somebody. What were some traditional things that you guys experienced at the backyard parties, at the small gigs and the basement gigs that necessarily aren't talked about now, but they were tradition? If somebody liked you, they would do this. Or if the band liked you, they would not the band. If the crowd loved you, they would all do something in unison.
You know what? It would, there was a spot called the Olympic Auditorium in LA, and they used to have pro wrestling back in the days, and the Fabulous Thunderbirds roller derby ring there. And it's a Korean church now, but it was such a big spot that there used to be 3 pits. There'd be the major pit in the middle and then 2 on the side. And, when you would see when the English bands would come to the United States, to Cali, you wouldn't see none of that spitting and pogoing and shit. It was all slam dancing, bro. And if you, to show respect to a band, dude, is getting on stage, who could do the biggest flip, who could do it the farthest. I had a friend named Paul Adrian, bro. He'd get on the fucking 4-speaker and do a flip into the crowd. We're talking 10 feet in the air. Or there was no moshing. I don't know where the moshing that came from, Anthrax or some bullshit, I don't know, but it was always slam dancing. And if you could get around the pit going against the grain, I'm talking about all the way around against the grain, it would go clockwise. If you could go counterclockwise all the way around, you were the shit. Now, if you were really the shit, you would put one of your homies on your shoulders and go against the grain all the way around, because you got your homeboy up on top there, whacking the fists away and just trying to get around, dude. And then if you got up on stage, bro, and you did a stage flip, you were the shit. People respected you.
That's super cool. Let's hop down now, all these years later, before the band, I think, even had the reunion. You're just living life and you get into a car accident. You're on your bike and a woman hits you and it takes off your leg. Can you walk me through your thinking at the time? Because every other interview you've mentioned, like, you're super grateful, God protected you. You're still able to go through and do all the things you love. But when something, I wouldn't say catastrophic because you were so positive about it, but something that reality grinding, something that brings you back down to your mortality happens. How did you take it at first? Walk me through that whole process. Did you have to talk to the cops? Was she like, hey, I'm so sorry? Or was she kind of a bitch about it? Walk me through the accident and then how you overcame it to be so positive about it now.
You know what? She was a bitch about it until this day, has never even said sorry. She acted like I was ruining her day. It was probably 3 blocks from my house. I was on my Harley. My girlfriend was on the back, coming through an intersection, and I started downshifting because I see this girl pulling out. She stops. I'm like, okay, she sees me, start pedaling through the intersection. She pulls fucking out. She ends up T-boning my left knee, which severed the artery to my to my knee, which eventually ended up leading to above the knee amputation. But when it first happened, they first had amputated below the knee. And, I don't remember a lot of being in the hospital during that time because I was on a lot of pain medication. But, you know, after a while, I was just like, when I first got hit, I'm just like, fuck, I got kids, I got a job. Here we go with a broken leg. Here we go with lawsuit, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, fuck, no work and be in the hospital. But then when I realized how bad it was, you know, it got pretty depressing, bro. I was in a dark spot and didn't really want to come out of it until, you know, I finally talked to a few amputees in the hospital and seen how their stuff to work. And I'm like, man, I can do this shit, you know. And I just was, when I had to make that final decision for them to do the amputation above my knee because of the clotting, I was just like, let's just do it, man. I've been here for, you know, I had been there for almost 3 weeks when they were trying to save my leg. And it just got like more painful and more painful. I almost coded a few times. And, you know, so I was just like, you know, I'm just going to, yeah, I don't know, man. I woke up a few times during surgery. I got really bad hallucinations because of the medicine they were giving me. I hallucinated for like 3 days. I was threatening to kill all the nurses. And I thought it was in a Vietnam war camp because a lot of the ladies were Filipino, the nurses. It got pretty fucking crazy, bro. And it wasn't until I went to physical therapy about a month later that I decided to go, you know what am I going to do now, man? You know, I'll still be able to get on stage. I'll still be able to hopefully someday surf, you know, because I was doing all these research on, you know, these water legs and all this stuff. And dude, to be honest with you, here we are almost 4 or 5 years later. And dude, I'm still in physical therapy. I'm still learning how to walk with the cane. I mean, I can walk really good without it, but my gait pattern is still fucked up due to COVID. A lot of the physical therapy had stopped. So, you know, rewinding when I got back, when I got to home, I was very positive. But then when I knew what it was going to take for me to recover, I was living upstairs. I had to go down, up and down the stairs. You know, my relationship with my girlfriend went to shit. You know, she lost her job as a nurse because she was also hurt, not so bad, but ended up, you know, being, you know, addicted to medication. And anyways, long story short, you know, I got into a dark fucking place, bro. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to work. I just wanted to sit there and take pain meds, bro. And till one day, they were doing a video, like a home video for my lawsuit, and they wanted to take it from like in the morning, what my daily routine was. And what, you know, how I did it, how difficult it was for me to take a shower and to drive, to do all this shit. They also interviewed my kids. When I saw the interview that they did with my kids, you know, it really, you know, my daughter was crying and it really brought it home, dude. Like, you have everything to move forward for these kids. You know what I mean? My daughter, I have a 15-year-old, a 22-year-old. One of them is in Tennessee in college. And the other one lives, you know, down the street from me. And so it was my kids and that made me think, man, like, I can't be one of these dudes, bro, that, you know, that they find fucking dead in their bed because I got steel put to my head. So I kind of turned around and I, you know, I got sober. I'm still sober to this day. I started talking to people. I started talking to amputees, and dude, I was on my way actually when I got in the accident to the Los Angeles Museum of Contemporary Art. They were doing a tattoo exhibit there, and I was invited to the release party of it. When the people from the museum had heard I got in the accident, they invited me after I healed to tattoo inside the museum. They had a makeshift shop inside the museum because it was a whole tattoo exhibit from from old school to new to Tibetan tattooing to American tattooing to overseas and back in the sailor days. And when I did that first tattoo after 6 months, nothing had changed. You know what I mean? So I think the tattooing in my kids brought me out of that dark place, because had I not, dude, you wouldn't be talking to me right now, more than likely.
God's blessing on that.
Yeah.
Let's go to the music too, because I just got done talking to Jim Florentine, and when he was in a bad spot, when I'm in a bad spot, when everybody's in a bad spot, the music, it's like an emotion. It helps with our emotions and crowning them. With the return of this band, Cycotic Youth, especially when you got all the pieces to fall together, did you already know how you wanted the album to transpire? Of course, we know it's a tribute album, and it's also like, hey, if you're going through hell, keep pushing. But when you had everybody there, you had all the pieces ready, and it was time to write for this album, did you say, hey, I have the direction ready to go? Or it was just kind of like, let's do what we do, and we'll pace it and figure it out?
That album was all a collective of writing. You know what I mean? You have songs like you'll hear on the album called Intentional Transmission. And that song's about the COVID shot. You know what I mean? Like, and you have songs called Thing Called Hate. And, it's a lot of things that happened during the lockdown. And then, you have songs like Suicidal, which is a dance that us punk rockers from the West Side do when we're at gigs. You know what I'm saying? We do, and so it's all of a collective of the whole band, and everybody has an equal part. I may have write most of the lyrics, and one guy might have write most of the riffs, but we do it as a collective. Our publishing is all equal. We don't take any less from any more from any other person, and that's just the way we write, bro. Someone will come in for a riff. Me, the guitar player Nick, and Bill, the drummer, will go in and write some stuff. We'll shoot it to Mikey, because he lives in North Carolina. He'll come in for shows and for tours and shit. We'll practice. He'll already know the new song. We'll do it a couple times. I'll lay down the lyrics, and then if we feel it's ready to play live, we'll play live with it. But right now we have 12 songs that are ready to be released, and we have 4 more that are brand new, that are being, that we've already written for the next album. So, yeah, dude, it's going to be intense, bro. You're going to dig this album for sure.
And with that, how validating is it to be able to come back, not just in a band that you're a part of, but this is your band. You're the only original member now. That it wasn't supposed to be that way, but that's how it's panned out. And considering the long career you've had.
It's something that I wanted to do, all my life. Like the sound that it's going, the sound that it is, the recording that came out of it, the mastering that came out of it, from Radford Media Group, who is our managers right now, from Bob Bradley does all our PR. These guys are really pushing it, because these guys not only doing it because we hired them, they're doing it because they like the music, dude. You know what I'm saying? And we're doing it because we like the music, and we're so eager to get it out to people. And people are like, what are you guys doing next? And like, oh, you dropped the single. Okay, what's next? So we drop another single, and people are just like, when's it coming out? Because we've had a rough road with this band, dude. It's been a good 6 years till we finally got it to where we want it, and till we finally got the album to where we want it, and the players and all the drama out of the band, and all the cancer out of the band, and positive people in it for sure.
I did want to touch on the music video, because you did the tribute to Jay, and I loved, just with a passion, how everybody did their thing. Not only did you grab the old videos of Jay skateboarding, but everybody in the band has their own sport. You got motocross, you got skateboarding and surfing and etc. Whose
Yeah.
idea initially was it to be like, hey, listen, we actually all kind of do something. Let's put this in the video, because that it's something when it comes to musicians, people forget, like, hey, you know, this musician has a lot more capabilities. They might kick serious ass and make their money on guitar, but you would never know. They're a martial artist, they're a sculptor,
Yeah.
you know, very intelligent, like Brian May as a doctor, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it was our guitar player, Nick Garcia's idea. He's the one that does the motocross. Bill Greenwood, the drummer, he does the BMX. Mike does the, you know, the boxing, Muay Thai, and does the downhill skateboarding. You know, and then that all that footage that was actually seen of Jay is unreleased footage. That's never been seen before except in that video. And we got that from a guy named Ray Flores, who is also a Z-boy and has one of the biggest skateboard collections on the West Coast. He gave us all that footage, and yeah, bro, we just said, you know what, let's just put it together with a couple shots of us. Let's dedicate it to Jay. You know, we got Josh Bagel Glassman. He's the photographer. The picture of the cover of the CYCOFIED single, that's Jay skating down in Venice back in the 90s. And Bagel took that picture, and yeah, bro, we were very the family, the Adams family, let us use anything we wanted to. We're very close with them, and I tattooed Jay's son. His name is Seven, and we're very a part of it. And we didn't do it because we thought we would look cool. We did it because we want to pay homage to our homie who took society as just you know, a ball of fun, dude. Didn't want sponsorships, didn't want you know, to get paid even though the money was good. You just wanted to skate and surf, bro, and listen to punk rock.
Considering that we almost have the album and you guys do have a track listing, yeah, everything's ready to go, I was curious, what's your favorite tune off this album? Which one, if you were to bring it up to somebody that never heard of you guys before?
I think Thing Called Hate, song called Thing Called Hate, and Cyco Up. Those are my two favorites on the album, because they're Thing Called Hate is a little bit more heavier than Cyco Up, and it kind of goes into a little bit of Slayer kind of feel, but Cyco Up is straight hardcore. You know, it's all you'll hear a little bit of everything in it, definitely.
With the band doing all this, what are the goals now? Because in another interview, you're just happy, man, if I just get the room and board and getting there covered, money's great, but we really just want to perform. What would be the ultimate goal for you guys? Would it just to be a typical living the life as musicians, going from town to town, and if you only play clubs or if you only play the backyards, you're happy just as long as you get to share the music? Or do you have bigger aspirations as far as sharing the music and getting it out there? Like, I had one musician, he was like, man, if we could get one song into a Marvel movie, I'll quit today. It, you know,
Yeah.
has a different idea.
Oh yeah, you know, dude, as long as wherever we go or wherever we tour, we like to get over in Europe. I've toured in Europe before with Strapped, and you know, we're not, as long as our room and board gets paid for, bro, and we can sell some merchandise and we can get it out to the world, we're good, bro. Maybe get a song on maybe a radio pull, maybe like I just want to maybe get a song on a local radio station so my mom can go, oh, I heard my son on the radio. We do have a song called Unity Family First, and it's a little bit more or less mellow, a little more mellower, but it's poppy. Almost reminds me of Send Me Your Money by Suicidal, and it's a little bit groovier, and you know, or even dude, just to hear your music in a video, a skate video, you know, Crusty Demons, a dirt video, something cool like that. Look at, bro, we just want to see the world. We want to play for the fans, and we just want to not go broke doing it, bro. You know what I'm saying? And we're not asking for $1 million, bro. We just want to, like I say, just get our room and board paid for, dude, and we're good.
is there anybody you're mentoring with music and or tattooing? Or anybody you're like, hey man, I'm coming out on the road, be like me when I used to tattoo in Paris? Or is there somebody that's shown a little light that you saw, kind of like when Rick saw you and you're like, you know what, let me help you, let me guide you as well and save you from, not even if it's not even the life of, you know, gang banging, but it's just like, let me help you on your journey? Or is there somebody or a couple people like that?
You know, I've actually apprenticed a couple people. One of them, the last of my apprentices, his name is Frankie LA, and he actually is a tattooer at my shop right now, and he went through a lot of you know, emotions during his apprenticeship, and a lot of tyranny, and you know, it was almost, I brought him back old school because I was testing his will, because I didn't want him to get walked over by clients and stuff. And you know, I'm very proud of him that he came out of his shell. He's been tattooing now almost 7 years, and you know, I'm very proud of him that he is able to work on his own and do his thing. And you know, my kids, you know, my younger daughter, she's 15. She's a singer. She can play drums. She can play piano. She can write music. And I'm kind of taking her under my wing to try to get her out there and get her confidence up. And she's played a grip of places in LA. And, you know, I tell her I'm going to get her in the studio with a guy named Scott Ueda. He's a very good producer, and we're going to get her into the studio to do her own music. And that's where I'm kind of at right now, as far as bringing some under my wing with that. And that's my concentration right now. Definitely.
Understood.
Definitely.
I always end these interviews with the most important question. What's the best piece of advice someone's ever given you? It could be serious. It could be like, hey man, just remember, don't let them F you over. It could be funny. It's like, hey, never buy a tour bus, rent one. But it's something that it's always in the back of your mind. It could have been a one-off. It could have been a really serious moment, but they said it. And for some reason, that's wisdom that just keeps on coming back to you every time you're in a situation where you need it.
It's an old timer named Mike Brown. He was a tattoo artist. I had the chance to work with him, and he has passed away now. But he said, you better get right before you get left. And that's that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was phenomenal, fantastic. And as being a skateboarder and a guy who loves that scene, it was wonderful. Jason Brown of Cycotic Youth, go check them out on YouTube. They also have the IG Cycotic Youth Official and a plethora, even on Bandcamp and etc. The album Cycotic Youth dropping July 15th. Sir, thank you so much for your time. I truly, truly appreciated it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. Stay blessed.
And everybody, don't go anywhere, because you know I got something good for you. But as always, be smart, be mindful, and God bless you. As always, Ninja out.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.